Pleased to announce that the Coalition Government is funding 1,500 additional social housing places in Budget 2024. I think most people are aware that the last Labor government funded social housing places that expired on June 2025, leaving one of these fiscal cliffs for the new government to confront. We are now filling that fiscal cliff by funding an additional 1,500 social housing places from July 2025 onwards for 2 years after that. What we are doing with this funding is being very deliberate in allocating it only to community housing providers. No social housing places will go to Kāinga Ora. The reason for that is that until ministers are confident in the financial sustainability of Kāinga Ora and the governance of that organisation, we don't have confidence that they'll be able to deliver those houses effectively. So all of the 1,500 social housing places will be allocated by the Housing and Urban Development Ministry to community housing providers like Salvation Army, like Emerge, like Court. There's a whole range of them out there, and there'll be a range of processes that I'll be making further announcements about around how exactly that will work. In terms of how we're paying for this, I should also say that we are allocating $140 million over the 2 years from July 2025 onwards for this. In terms of how we're paying for this, Budget 2024 is all about the government making difficult decisions and tough decisions that are the right thing to do. We are discontinuing the government's First Home Grant scheme, which saves $245 million over the next 4 years. The First Home Grant is a program that ultimately we think, in comparison to social housing places, is lower value expenditure at a time when the social housing waitlist has 25,000 families on it, and we have a big demand for New Zealanders in need. We've had to make the tough, but I think the right decision to discontinue the First Home Grant and reprioritise that money to social housing places, housing vulnerable, quite often vulnerable New Zealanders in a warm and dry home. With that, happy to take your questions. So that actually is part of the ongoing funding for the social housing places. What the funding entails is essentially it allows HUD to contract for 25-year contracts. So once you've allocated the money in year 1 and year 2, the funding continues into the out years. So all of that money will go into years 3, 4 and beyond. So in the out years, it's $70 million a year that we are announcing today for social housing places. So that funding continues. So every single dollar that we are saving out of the discontinuation of the First Home Grants is going into social housing places. If you want to get really technical about it, it's $70 million a year over the forecast period. That's 4 years. That's $280 million. We're saving $245. The balance will be topped up in the out years.
Why have you decided to immediately stop applications for the grant? What about people that are so close to being able to apply for the grant?
So people that are pre-approved and approved, we will honour. And if you get pre-approval, that can last for up to 6 months. So if you've gone through the system and you've been approved for a first home grant or been pre-approved or you've currently got approval and you're going out there and looking for your first home, that can last for up to 6 months. All of those will be honoured. What we're saying is from today, we won't be taking any new applications.
Are you creating a fiscal cliff by only allocating 1,500 places?
No, we think this is the responsible thing to do for the next 2 years. We've filled in the fiscal cliff that Labor left us over the 4 years. As I've indicated on Monday, we're taking a wider look at the social housing system and particularly how we support the community housing sector. So we've gone and talked to a few of the chips and engaged with the sector. This is an achievable target for them from 2025 onwards. And over time, of course, we want to scale up the community housing sector. And as part of the response to the Kāinga Ora review on Monday and our wider review of housing funding, it may be that in time we can do more with the community housing sector, and once we've landed those decisions, we'll announce them.
They believe they have capacity to do more, and also they need certainty, like to get funding, they need certainty in a pipeline. So we're in a downturn.
Yeah, we're now giving them. We're now giving them that certainty. So
1,500 is not many.
Well, it's 1,500 beyond 2025 through to 2027. So the feedback we've had is that the houses that they are building now were contracted 18 months, 24 months ago, so one and a half, 2 years ago. That's the lag time and the lead time. They've come to us and said quite rightly, hang on, what's happening after 2025? Labor didn't leave us any more money, no more houses were allocated, so we haven't been able to get the contracts in place. Fair enough, we are now filling that hole in that Labor left us, and that gives them some pipeline certainty. I hear the call from the community housing sector for a much longer term funding track. I hear that, I understand that, I've previously expressed support for that. We've just got to consider that as part of the response to the Kāinga Ora review and our wider review of social housing settings.
You say that the evidence shows that this is inefficient. What is the evidence, and are we going to see the evidence?
In terms of what, sorry?
You said in the press release that the evidence shows that the system doesn't work as inefficient. So what is that evidence?
You mean in terms of the social housing system?
In terms of the first home.
Oh, first home grants. Oh, right. Well, the evidence, I'm happy to make it available to you. The evidence tends to suggest, so that the median that people get, so the average first home grant is $5,000. So you can get between $3,000 and $10,000 depending on if you're buying a new build or an existing home, depending on how long you've been in KiwiSaver. There's a whole range of different requirements. The median's $5,000. To give you the numbers, back in 2010, the first home grant made up 10% of a deposit for a lower quartile house. So, not insubstantial, 10% of a deposit. Now, with house prices up the way they are, the first home grant provides 4% of the lower quartile house. So we're not talking about, I appreciate there'll be some people who will like the money, and I acknowledge that, but it doesn't, the evidence suggests it doesn't make the difference between people actually buying a house or not. It might bring forward the purchase of a home. It doesn't actually make the difference between buying a home or not.
If we're talking about a larger sum of money, which we are, based on what you just said, 4% is a big deal for people.
Yeah.
That's the difference between not getting a home and getting a home.
Yeah, as I said, it tends to, the evidence suggests it brings forward by up to a year, but in some cases a matter of months, people saving for a deposit.
Yeah, I just at the moment, 12 months is an extremely long time.
Yeah, as I say, it brings the house forward. It doesn't make the difference between buying a house or not. But as I say, we have had to make the tough but necessary decision. We're on a value for money drive. Government's got a series of priorities. We are redirecting this money into vulnerable New Zealanders who need access to a warm and dry home.
There are a lot of people out there who are going, or voters who are going to be outraged by this. Have you done any sort of a public object test on it?
Government is about doing the right thing. This government was elected on doing the right thing and making tough but necessary decisions to support New Zealanders through the troubled economic times that we're in, and making sure that money that the government collects from New Zealanders goes to its highest value use and where it will make the most difference. I think when you have to compare first home grants that brings forward the purchase of a home by a few months, when you compare that to providing surety for the community housing sector to make sure that some of our most vulnerable New Zealanders can get access to a warm and dry home, I think many New Zealanders will see the difference.
How many providers in that first tranche?
How many New Zealanders each year are getting these first home grants?
About 7,800 last year received a first home grant, about a median of $5,000.
Are Māori providers in that, Māori funding providers in that first tranche of 1,500, particularly those like Toitū, Rāwhiti, who work with rural farming?
They may be. There'll be a process run by the Housing and Urban Development Ministry to contract those places, as they've done over the last few years. So they may be. They will undoubtedly bid into that, and I'll be making further announcements about exactly how we'll allocate those places later.
No discussion with Māori providers?
Oh, I've met with some Māori providers, yes. Yep.
In 2021, National put out a press statement under the name of Nicola Willis saying Labor failing first home buyers, priority says rather than helping more first home buyers get their own home, Labor is leaving more out in the cold. That's because there wasn't enough of an uptake of the first home grants.
Yes. Yeah, well, that was then, this is now, and we've just had to confront the fiscal conditions that we are in and make the tough but necessary decisions to support our most vulnerable New Zealanders. I think it's the right thing to do. I appreciate that it will be unpopular with some, but government is not always about doing the most popular thing. This government was elected to do the right thing, and that is what we are doing. I want to be really clear in relation to first home grants as well. The government's retaining the first home loan scheme, which I appreciate not a lot of people know about, but just briefly, the way it works is if you're a lower income, or there's a range of income caps, but generally if you're lower income, and you can pull together 5% of a deposit. The government has an underwrite scheme to top up the balance to get to 20%. That helped around 3,000 families last year. The government spent about $18 million on it. We're retaining that. The evidence, the advice I've had from the officials is that is a more effective way to support first home buyers.
That was far more successful for Māori than the First Home Grant, which wasn't. Māori criticised that First Home Grant because they were unable to achieve the criteria for that.
I think this is a positive announcement for Maori community housing providers and a range of providers out there who are often doing very underappreciated work, may I say, particularly in our regions, doing a very good job of getting some of our families out of motels and into warm, dry homes. So I think this is a positive announcement.
Community housing Aotearoa's budget down to $450,000 per year from being over $1 million in previous years.
I am not across the details of that. I'm not sure that's actually correct, but I can come back to you on that.
Speaking about that context, do you have any concerns about bringing back interest deductibility for landlords versus first home buyers?
No, the interest deductibility moves that we've made are the right thing to do. It was unprincipled and wrong for Labor to remove interest deductibility, and that is the right thing to do. It will put downward pressure on rents, and it will mean that more landlords come back into the market. They're quite separate issues, so I stand by all of those decisions. Did I access it? No, I didn't, because I was outside the income cap. So I can't speak for the rest of my cabinet colleagues, but I didn't. I did withdraw my KiwiSaver to do it, and the ability to do that has been retained.
If you're the first home buyer and you see how it seems unfair that you're scrapping a $60 million loan rate as the leg up for them to move to the first home, whereas you're giving out $2.9 billion to
I appreciate that this will not be popular with everybody, and I appreciate that this will cause some pain for some people, but we are doing the right thing to support our most vulnerable New Zealanders. What I would say to them is that the government has a range of other has other tools like the first home loan to support first home buyers, and the ultimate answer to first home buyers, the ultimate solution, is to fix our housing crisis and make housing more affordable. If we're honest about it, the first home grant started as a demand-side measure to try and help some people into first home ownership when the wider system was not being fixed. We need to open up land at the edge of our cities. We need to densify in our cities, and I've made a decision around that in the last couple of weeks that will help give effect to that, and we've got a whole work program underway on that. We need to fix our infrastructure settings, and we need to incentivise councils. So I just want to reassure everyone watching that we are absolutely determined to drive down the cost of housing in New Zealand for renters and for first home buyers.
You're also framing it though, you're also framing it as an or, and you stood at PostCab on Monday and you said that it would be social housing and state housing, that it was going to be
And
you're now standing here saying, well, it can only be the first home grants or it can be social
Well,
housing.
until-
Why can't it be illicit?
Well, it is. But until we fix Kāinga Ora and
You're removing
just let me answer. Well, just for 2 years, until we have fixed the governance and the operations of Kāinga Ora and we have confidence in the financial sustainability of the organisation, we are going to deliberately target the community housing sector and allow them to grow, because that's where we want to take the system. It's not to say that Kāinga Ora won't get more money in the future. Those decisions are yet to be made.
You're missing the point. So you said that it was social housing and state housing. You're saying it's an and. I'm using that example, an and example, and saying why can't it be that people who need the money to get into their first home
Oh, right, I
and
see.
social housing? Why can't we have an and there?
Well, as I say, I'll just go back to what I said before. We've made the tough but necessary decision to reprioritise expenditure. Sometimes government is about making tough decisions and making those trade-offs. There is no magic money tree at the end of the garden, as we all know, and we are having to do the right thing. I appreciate it won't necessarily be popular with everybody, but we are doing the right thing for New Zealanders. Well, let's just wait and see. We're demanding a turnaround plan by November. The new board chair, Simon Muta, starts on June 4. We'll have a new board in place in July. We're asking a turnaround plan of them by November, and so we will take decisions after that. Well, let's just wait and see. There's a big turnaround job to do there, and until ministers have got confidence, then we're not allocating any more social housing places. Just want to be really clear that they have had billions and billions of dollars over the last few budgets to build houses, and they are in the process of building those houses now, including houses allocated to them as part of Budget 2023. So there's plenty of them to get on with.
So just want to get this clear. There's a downturn. Builders are going to Australia. You're doing away with the Kiwi Build, which is removing a way to help development, and then you're producing a very small number of placements for social housing.
It's a lot of places.
The last government did 3,000. You're doing 1,500. So that's actually slowing the pipeline of building at a time there's a downturn.
Well,
I just don't understand the economic logic to that.
yeah, okay. Well, I appreciate you come from a different perspective, but
I thought this was the party of economics.
yeah, okay. Well, I mean, you've got your own views. You're entitled to those. We are making decisions in the best interest of New Zealanders, and as I say, we are having a look at the wider housing system and all of the different funds that are available. As I detailed on Monday at the Post Cabinet, there is over a dozen different housing programs across the government's system. It's billions upon billions of dollars. It's not to say that we're not going to continue those programs. We are going to have a look at the value for money from them, and we campaigned on doing that, and that's what we're in the process of doing. No, that's true, but we also have confronted a fiscal situation that has deteriorated significantly in the last few years because of the profligacy of the last government. Grant Robertson has left us, alongside the Labour Party, with an enormous fiscal disaster that we are now having to confront, and that involves tough decisions and trade-offs. And I just put it to you that this is the right thing to do for New Zealanders. All right, I've got to get to the House. We plan to make it this week, yes. We thought it was a nice follow-on from the Monday announcement about Kāinga Ora. We plan to make it this week, yep. I think you're overreading his comments yesterday. As he said, some things are tapu and the budget's one of them, and they're tapu until budget ministers declare that they're not tapu, and that's what I'm declaring today. Okay, thanks.